Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and we got a really fun episode for you guys today. I've been getting a lot of requests for more Neo Geo content on MiSTer, so I want to talk about my ultimate MiSTer Neo Geo setup because I've loved the Neo Geo console, and I absolutely think more people should get into the platform if they haven't yet. Got a little trailer to show you guys, and we're going to talk about the setup and games I recommend, but do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. If it feels so inclined, we got a Patreon link in the description below as well. But without further ado, watch the trailer and we'll get into the Neo Geo in just a second. I just absolutely love the Neo Geo. It's been one of my favorite consoles for the longest time, but I want to talk about how to get the best experience out of your MiSTer when you're playing Neo Geo games. And right off the top, I can't recommend enough getting the right controller setup, because the Neo Geo was designed in a 4-button configuration, A, B, C, and D in a straight line. Obviously, it's more of an arc, but with the custom sticks I built, these are more for general arcade purposes and Capcom setups. So we need to get the AES stick into the MiSTer, because you can see here that DB15 port, no matter how much you poke at the MiSTer, it's not going to fit in. So what I highly recommend is doing a Daemonbite arcade encoder adapter. You can buy these pre-made or you can make them yourself. I'll leave a link in the description below on how to make them and how to flash with the Arduino program to get that code in, because it allows you to use any arcade stick on your MiSTer that you want, because nobody makes a 4-button USB stick in the Neo Geo configuration that I know of. So with this Daemonbite adapter, we can plug that DB15 port with the custom Neo Geo pinout right into the adapter, and then we'll just go from micro USB to USB on the MiSTer. This allows us to play all the Neo Geo games with a controller that would normally be associated with the console. You can use the same adapter for the Neo Geo CD pad if you have one of those, and I know that this is a big ask to play it with this controller, but try to do it. You'll love it. Secondarily, both the Neo Geo AES and the MiSTer support RGB output, and I can't recommend enough that the MiSTer and the Neo Geo look the best in RGB. This cable I have tested. I will leave a link to the Amazon page below. I don't make any money off them, but I highly suggest that you use RGB if you can. Now, if you don't have a PVM or something with an RGB signal, I will also leave a link to some cables below to get you to S Video or Component if you have that. But if you have an RGB TV, this is going to be the way to play, because over here on the right, the Neo Geo is running, and I have it in S Video. If I move over to MiSTer, it's an RGB, and I'm just doing this to show you the difference in colors between the two different types of inputs. S Video still looks really nice. It's a little bit more vibrant, but that's not quite correct. But no matter how you shake it, whether you're using MiSTer or the original hardware, it fits onto my PVM in the exact same format, so that is showing just how good the RGB implementation is on a MiSTer. The analog out is perfect. You'll see all these really nice thick scan lines that you get on a CRT that you're not going to get on an LCD. If you do use LCD, probably don't turn the scan lines on would be my recommendation, but no matter how you play on a CRT, both the MiSTer as well as the original Neo Geo play identically. I can pull off the same moves, everything is perfect. One thing the MiSTer doesn't do, and this is kind of just a joke, is it doesn't smell like old stale cigarettes. A lot of the Japanese AES games do, so maybe just throw some cigarette butts around you as you play, and I always recommend, for some strange reason, Neo Geo goes well with a great beer, or even better if you have a fine Japanese whiskey sitting around. Pour yourself a glass of it. You're not going to be disappointed. These are just things that I think of when I think of Neo Geo. But there is an incredible library. There's 149 games that will run on MiSTer, including ROM variations. And while I do have a pretty extensive collection of Neo Geo games, I don't have them all, but this is where I think you should start if you want to get into the system. Obviously, the Neo Geo is synonymous with fighting games, so we're going to be talking a lot about those, but if you've never played the King of Fighters before, I absolutely love 2002. It is my favorite King of Fighters game on the platform. Now, of course, some people may disagree and say 98 is the best, and I understand that argument, and some days I may even agree with you, but 2002 and 98 are dream matches. There's not really much story. It's just an awesome roster with incredible looking graphics, amazing soundtrack. It's got everything you want in a fighting game, and it gives you all of that without a lot of the story in between. All of the King of Fighter games are great. 2003 is a little bit different than the rest, and 2001 I would just say is probably not great, and I would avoid it. But like I said, if you're not into 2002, you're going to find a lot to love in King of Fighters 1998. This is one of the best fighting games on the platform, and if you're just getting into the hardware, you definitely need to check out the King of Fighters games because they are exactly what people are thinking of when they think of the Neo Geo as far as fighting games are concerned. The graphics are just absolutely outstanding. The background art, all the different animations that are going on outside of the fighting, that dove that flies by, all the parallax scrolling. This is what I think of when I think of Neo Geo, and I think you're absolutely going to love these games, and that's why I'm doing this video. If you're really familiar with the Neo Geo, then these recommendations are going to seem obviously stereotypical and standard because you know the console, but I know a lot of people are just getting into the Neo Geo because of MiSTer that haven't had a chance to play these games on quote-unquote real hardware, so you definitely want to check them out. And of course, you can't talk about the Neo Geo without talking about Geru Mark of the Wolves, and I dare say this is the best 2D fighting game ever made by any company. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Street Fighter fans out there that are going to vehemently disagree with that statement, but I can assure you, if you're into 2D fighting games and you've never played Geru Mark of the Wolves, you 100% have to play this game. It is incredible, and it is great on MiSTer. It is a beautiful game. The fighting mechanics are the best that I have ever checked out. This is the total package. You play this game, you like 2D fighting games, you're absolutely going to love it. And if you convert your Neo Geo stick over with that Daemonbite adapter, it's going to play identical to real hardware, and that's because the Neo Geo chips were decapped and scanned, so it gives us an even higher level of accuracy compared to some of the other cores. But if you want something slower, you can't go wrong with The Last Blade. This is a weapons-based fighting game, and it's much slower than something like King of the Fighters or Geru Mark of the Wolves. But it is gorgeous, it's beautiful. This is the height of SNK with 2D sprite-based artwork. Even when that snow comes down because you hit the screen, it's just filled with detail. All of these red leaves hitting the ground. This is why I love the Neo Geo, and it's probably why it's my favorite console of all time. And it is quite an expensive console, so having the MiSTer is incredible because you're getting every single AES and MVS game ever made in perfect quality. If you want something a little bit weirder, you can go over to Waku Waku 7. If you buy this on the Saturn, it's not as good as the Neo Geo, and it's quite expensive. If you buy this on the Neo Geo AES, you may need to take out a small home loan to afford it. Obviously, on MiSTer, it's a ROM, so we don't need to worry so much about that. And if you love weird, I know I've shown the game on the channel before, I can't get enough of Matra Melee. This is probably not the best fighting game on the Neo Geo, but charm-wise, it is absolutely my favorite game on the system. And obviously, I can't talk about fighting games without at least touching on the fact that this is the home to a ton of Samurai Showdown games. My favorite is Samurai Showdown 2, but play all of them, maybe you'll find a different favorite compared to me. But of course, we've talked about fighters, let's talk about shmups, because there is a ton of fun to be had on the Neo Geo as well. Obviously, Blazing Star is one of my favorites. It definitely has like a Pro Gear feel to it, even if the genre and theming is completely different. But what it does with pseudo 3D effects on the Neo Geo is spectacular, and MiSTer is doing a great job of showing them all off. This game just looks like something that's running on a 32-bit system like the Saturn or PlayStation 1, but it's just on Neo Geo, and how incredible is that? But of course, Blazing Star has a twin game, and that is going to be Pulse Star. I used it for a lot of comparisons. This is more like the slow R-type version of a shmup on the Neo Geo. Between these two games, you're going to get hours of absolutely incredible shmup content, and playing it on the MiSTer on a CRT is going to be perfect. But maybe you like something a little bit faster paced, a little something goofier. Prehistoric Isle 2, it's a shmup where you shoot dinosaurs that have invaded a city. You don't get to get that too often, but on the Neo Geo and on MiSTer, you're going to be able to shoot dinosaurs to your heart's content. But there's so many different shmups on the Neo Geo, I can't talk about them all, but if you want something a little bit different, check out Twinkle Star Sprites. It's a shmup that also plays like a head-to-head Tetris or Puyo Puyo challenge game. It's really hard to describe in words, but when you're playing it, especially against a friend in the same room, It is outstanding. It's one of the weirder games on the platform, but I love weird, so I absolutely love Twinkle Star Sprites. But of course, you can play Arrow Fighters and so many other shmups. Now on the run and gun format, you have a ton of options as well. Shock Troopers is absolutely outstanding. I think this is better than the sequel. The sequel changes the graphical style ever so slightly, but if you like a Contra-style run and gun, you could do a lot worse than playing Shock Troopers. And of course, when we talk about run and guns, we have to address the big elephant in the room, which is the Metal Slug franchise. There are 6 Metal Slug games on the Neo Geo, ranging from absolutely iconic and classic to pretty decent, depending on what you think about them, but 3, for my money, is my absolute favorite entry in this series. But the one game that became a thing on the Neo Geo is Puzzle Bobble. This is where it first started. It is synonymous. This was probably the best-selling game in North America as far as arcades are concerned. Pretty much every arcade had an MVS cabinet, and if it had multiple games, it definitely had Puzzle Bobble in it. It's simple, it's fun, it's exactly what I think of when I think of the Neo Geo. But if you're into that puzzle format, you kind of want to play a little less fighting games, Neo Bomberman again is an absolutely outstanding entry in the Bomberman series, and it's just a ton of fun on the Neo Geo. My big point here is just how many great games there are. The one genre that's a little thin are beat-em-ups. Sengoku 3 here looks beautiful. It's not maybe the best beat-em-up ever. It's a thin genre on the Neo Geo, but there's still a lot of good stuff to check out. And of course, it just looks so pretty. I love the look of all the Neo Geo games, especially the later in life stuff. And there's even a few platforms. It's pretty thin. There's Blues Journey, but there's also Top Hunter, Roddy and Cathy. It's got a really interesting setup with a dual screen where you can jump into the foreground or background. It's just a really interesting and intriguing experience. But these are kind of my picks as to where to start if you want to get into the Neo Geo. If you want to get that ultimate MiSTer setup going, you need that PVM, you need the controller with the Daemonbite adapter, and you just need a chance to experiment with all of the games. Because like I said, just bring a beer, maybe some nice whiskey, and you're going to have a ton of fun. If you have any questions or comments, I'll leave them down below, but I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.